So there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today that just seems like we're in a whole other, I don't even know. But I haven't read a story out loud in a while, so I thought I'd read The Emperor's New Clothes for you today. The Emperor's New Clothes. Many years ago, there was an emperor who was so excessively fond of new clothes that he spent all his money on them. He cared nothing about his soldiers, or for the theater, or for driving in the woods, except for the sake of showing off his new clothes. He had a costume for every hour of the day. Instead of saying, as one does about any other king or emperor, he is in his council chamber, the people always said, the emperor is in his dressing room. Life was very good in the great town where they lived. Hosts of strangers came to visit, and among them one day were two swindlers. They gave themselves out as weavers and said that they knew how to weave the most beautiful fabrics imaginable. Not only were the colors and patterns unusually fine, but the clothes were made of this cloth that had a peculiar quality of becoming invisible to every person who was not fit for the office he held, or who was impossibly dull. Those must be splendid clothes, thought the emperor. By wearing them, I should be able to discover which men in my kingdom are unfit for their posts. I shall be able to tell the wise men from the fools. Yes, I certainly must order some of that stuff to be woven for me. The emperor paid the two swindlers a lot of money in advance so that they might begin their work at once. They did put up two looms and pretended to weave, but they had nothing whatever upon their shuttles. At the outset, they asked for a quantity of the finest silk and the purest gold thread, all of which they put into their own bags while they worked away at the empty looms far into the night. I should like to know how those weavers are getting on with their cloth, thought the emperor, but he felt a little queer when he reflected that anyone who was stupid or unfit for his post would not be able to see it. He certainly thought that he needed to have no fears for himself. Still, he thought he would send somebody else first to see how the work was getting on. Everybody in the town knew what wonderful power the stuff possessed, and everyone was anxious to see how stupid his neighbor was. I will send my faithful old minister to the weavers, thought the emperor. He will be best able to see how the stuff looks, for he is a clever man, and no one fulfills his duties better than he does. So the old minister went into the room where the two swindlers sat working at the empty loom. Heaven help us, thought the old minister, opening his eyes very wide. Why, I can't see a thing. But he took care not to say so. Both the swindlers begged him to be good enough to step a little nearer. They asked if he did not think it a good pattern and beautiful coloring, and they pointed to the empty loom. The poor old minister stared as hard as he could, but he could not see anything, for of course there was nothing to see. Good heavens, thought he, is it possible that I am a fool? I have never thought so, and nobody must know I am. Am I not fit for my post? It will never do to say that I cannot see the stuff. Well, sir, you don't say anything about the stuff, said the one who was pretending to weave. Oh, it is beautiful. Quite charming, said the minister, looking through his spectacles. Such pattern and such colors. I will certainly tell the emperor that the stuff pleases me very much. We are delighted to hear you say so, said the swindlers, and then they named all the colors and described the peculiar pattern. The old minister paid close attention to what they said, so as to be able to repeat it when he got home to the emperor. Then the swindlers went on to demand more money, more silk, and more gold, to be able to proceed with the weaving. They put it all into their own pockets. Not a single strand was ever put into the loom. But they went on as before, pretending to weave at the empty loom. The emperor soon sent another faithful official to see how the stuff was getting on and if it would soon be ready. The same thing happened to him as to the minister. He looked and looked, but there was only an empty loom. He could see nothing at all. Is it not a beautiful piece of stuff? Said both the swindlers, showing and explaining the beautiful pattern and colors which were not there to be seen. I know I am no fool, thought the man, so it must be that I am unfit for my good post. It is very strange, but I must not let on. So he praised the stuff he did not see and assured the swindlers of his delight in the beautiful colors and the originality of the design. It is absolutely charming, he said to the emperor. Everybody in the town was now talking about this splendid stuff, and the emperor thought he would like to see it while it was still on the loom. So, accompanied by a number of selected courtiers, among who were the faithful officials who had already seen the imaginary stuff, he went to visit the crafty impostors. They were working away as hard as ever as they could at the empty loom. It is magnificent, said both the honest officials. Only see, your majesty. What a design, what colors, and they pointed to the empty loom, for they each thought the others could see the stuff. What, thought the emperor? I see nothing at all. This is terrible. Am I a fool? Am I not fit to be emperor? Why, nothing worse could happen to me. Oh, it is beautiful, said the emperor. It has my highest approval. He nodded his satisfaction as he gazed at the empty loom. Nothing could induce him to say that he could not see anything. The whole suite gazed and gazed, but saw nothing more than all the others. However, they all exclaimed with His Majesty, it is very beautiful. They advised him to wear a suit made of this wonderful cloth on the occasion of the great procession, which was just about to take place. Magnificent, gorgeous, excellent, went from mouth to mouth. They were all equally delighted with it. The emperor gave each one of the weavers an order of knighthood to be worn in his buttonhole and the title of gentleman weaver. The swindlers sat up the whole night before the day in which the procession was to take place. They burned 16 candles so that the people might see how anxious they were to let the emperor's how anxious they were to get the emperor's new clothes ready. They pretended to take the stuff off the loom. They cut it out in the air with a huge pair of scissors, and they stitched away with needles without any thread in them. At last, they said, now the emperor's new clothes are ready. The emperor, with his grandest courtiers, went to them himself. Both the swindlers raised one arm in the air as if they were holding something. They said, see, these are the trousers, this is the coat, here is the mantle, and so on. They are as light as a spider's web. One might think one had nothing on, but that is the very beauty of it. Yes, said the courtiers, but they could not see anything, for there was nothing to see. Will your imperial majesty be graciously pleased to take off your clothes, said the impostors. Then we might put on the new ones along here before the great mirror. The emperor took off all of his clothes, and the impostors pretended to give him one article of dress after the other of the new clothes which they had pretended to make. They pretended to fasten something around his waist and tie on something. This was the train. The emperor turned around and around in front of the mirror. How well his majesty looks in his new clothes! How becoming they are! Cried all the people. What a design, and what colors! They are most gorgeous robes. The canopy is waiting outside, which is to be carried over your majesty in the procession, said the master of ceremonies. Well, I am quite ready, said the emperor. Don't the clothes fit well? Then he turned around again in front of the mirror so that he should seem to be looking at his grand things. The chamberlains who were to carry the train stopped and pretended to lift it from the ground with both hands, and they walked along with their hands in the air. They dared not let it appear that they could not see anything. Then the emperor walked along in the procession under the gorgeous canopy, and everybody in the streets and in the windows exclaimed, how beautiful the emperor's new clothes are! What a splendid train, and they fit to perfection. Nobody would let it appear that he could not see anything, for that would prove that he was not fit for his post, or else he was a fool. None of the emperor's clothes had been so successful before. But he has nothing on, said a little child. Oh, listen to the innocent, said his father, and one person whispered to the other what the child had said. He has nothing on. The child says he has nothing on. But he has nothing on, at last cried all the people. The emperor writhed, for he knew that it was true, but he thought the procession must go on now. So he held himself stiffer than ever, and the chamberlains held up the invisible train.